Wandering Night, a low-vision view of the world. The Milford Track, Fjordlands National Park, New Zealand.
Are independently walking here, not here with ultimate guys. Just go ahead, grab your pocket, and you'll be disembarking the vessel first. You don't have to do it right now, but you'll be disembarking the vessel first.
2.5 hour bus ride and an hour and a bit on boat to cross Anau Lake. We are here on the Milford Track. And while we've clumped up a little bit in the beginning because we're all starting out, we'll get this spread out every day.
Yeah. I think there'll be a lot of other people who want to do tanning work.
I believe you're told primarily a beech forest. This is a rainforest area. You get over 200 days worth of rain.
Walk backwards.
A lot of ferns, a lot of lichen. Our first day's walk will be to Glade House, which is only about 15 minutes away. Here we are. We've walked into this rather nice glade. There's Glade House off in the distance. We're hearing birds that to my ear sound more like what I would expect to find back home up north. Or maybe what I should say is I haven't heard those distinctive calls of the New Zealand birds we were hearing earlier in the week, like the tui. Here we are at Glade House, just under a mile in on the Milford Track. And it's edging past 8 p.m. We've had a delicious dinner. We've done a nature walk that may actually be harder in some ways than the Milford Track. As far as the footing goes, it was full of roots, lots and lots of roots. The soil here is apparently not very good, so tree roots grow down, instead of growing down, they grow sideways. And a lot of them are above the ground, so a lot of tripping hazards on this nature walk that takes an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending how slow you are. I think I took the 2 hours. Our HF group, which is Mom, Dad, me, Catherine, and Ulwin, all have a bunkhouse together. Everybody else is sharing bunkhouses, families, friends, people just tossed together. Oh yeah. There we go. Crossing the Quinton, I believe, river on a suspension bridge with a load capacity of 10 people. Very wiggly. Notice how the bounces get worse at the end? It's our second day on the Milford Track. Today, we would hike about 10 miles, gaining a bit more than 1,000 feet, I think, to Pompolona Hut.
It's not pretty. That's interesting.
After coming through the large fallen down tree, Hiker number 1 approaches and passes the photographer. Hiker number 2 in the orange hat, moving along, is coming to approach the photographer next. Will he say hello to the photographer? I don't know.
Up until this point, we've been in forest. It looks like it might be opening up just a little bit. We've seen a lot of these pour-offs, waterfalls. Many of them are temporary, I understand. Hard to imagine this one is. Great little area here. Good spot for lunch. A little warmer out from the shade of the forest. And this area has been interesting. It's high alpine grasses, it seems. On our second day, we would leave Pompolona, hike over the McKinnon Pass, and then descend down to Quinton Lodge. The distance is only 9 miles, but over that distance you ascend 2,000 feet and descend 3,000 feet. It was overcast all day, but that didn't detract from the quality of the hike. At least I don't think it did. As you see, water everywhere to attract the attention, and still interesting views. But also a very challenging hike, especially after we passed the little hut at Mintaro Lake. The bulk of the climbing to McKinnon Pass happens a little before Mintaro Hut to the pass itself. That is, from a little bit before mile marker 13 to a bit after mile marker 16. Over that distance, you climb about 2,000 feet. And while the climbing is done on switchbacks, the switchbacks themselves are pretty rocky. So the going is hardly what I would call speedy. Even so, I think we didn't do too bad. Only a little below average time. And we did stop for some wonderful pictures and to change our clothing a few times.
There's one here earlier on, trying to steal my lunch.
One of the parrots that we can shined a light at it. That scared it. Well and good.
We got to Pass Hut just after 1 o'clock, and we left there about 1:30. Mom probably left around 1 o'clock, and most people had left there probably closer to 12:30. At this point, the sign says you're going to get to Quinton Hut in 3 hours. And that's a distance of somewhere between 3.5 and 4 miles, we think. Well, if you're an agile hiker, good shape, then okay, that's entirely feasible. For many people, your speed's going to drop to about 1 mile per hour, maybe a little more. If you're me, your speed plummets. As you plummet, we drop better part of 3,000 feet, 900 meters, over the 3.5 miles from Pass Hut to Quinton Hut. So you can guess how steep that is. It's not only steep, it's rocky. Lots of steps down, big steps down, lots of gaps, lots of streams to step in for me, and my speed plummeted to maybe 0.7 miles per hour. Might have even been a little bit less than that. In fact, it took us 6 hours. This is our view here at Quinton Hut. I don't know if it showed up in the video, but there's a bit of a moon over the mountain. The big peak we just panned by, I believe. It was the best of hikes and the worst of hikes today. The ascent up to McKinnon Pass was actually not too bad. Over its 3-mile length, that's when the primary ascending happens. Switchbacks and nice trail. The weather wasn't ideal, but it was par for the course, and we did get some spectacular views. On the other hand, the descent was horrible.
What are you doing?
Our last day on the Milford Track, we would have to hike about 13 miles, but the descent would be only about 200 or so meters. You'd think that would make it an easy day. Turned out otherwise. This is just one of the great pieces of trail building here on the Milford Track. I didn't record any of it yesterday, but there's a fantastic stairway, must be several hundred steps, that come down a waterfall a couple of miles before you reach Quinton Hut, and it's just wonderful. You can't imagine what going down that bit of trail was like before they built the stairs. But this boardwalk is something special too. No traipsing through the swamp. These Department of Conservation workers are doing serious trail work. There was an avalanche and the trail has to be rerouted. That heavy machinery you're about to see is flown in by a helicopter. This is a trail that needs a lot of tender, loving care. On the rocks?
I can't
Can you see them?
No, it's too far.
The whistle you heard is the call of a blue duck. This is a very endangered bird. It likes fast-running water like we have here. Look hard. You should be able to see it. Although I never really did. It's opened up a little bit here. We've got about 6 miles to go, I figure. Not too much more descent, but I think it's still supposed to take about 3.5 hours, so it probably gets rocky again. Sandflies are out, akin to the American blackfly, so that's what they're like. There were some notably challenging spots of hike left, especially around mile marker 29, where we had to climb up and down a rocky hill. But everywhere else, the footing was just bad enough to slow me down more than I certainly expected.
I thought Kenneth would be acing this.
What time did you get here?
Well, I got to the house at about 2:45. And Kenneth is pulling up in the rear
With Cass.
with Kaz, one of the 4 guides that we have on this trip. They're now coming into the 33-mile post, which you think is the end, but there's really half a mile from here.
Terrain threw in just enough curves to really slow me down. My speed was probably about 1.7 miles per hour, a good third of a mile per hour less than Mom. So the day was a little longer than I would have liked, but still an excellent day ending a very fine, though hard, hike.